If you're a fan of 2K and Gearbox Software's looter-shooter series Borderlands, then you no doubt rejoiced at the prospect of a spin-off game starring none other than teen demolitions expert Tiny Tina. But what about if you're not already a fan of the series? You probably have lots of questions about Tiny Tina's Wonderlands that no one has been willing to answer for you. Well, fret no longer, because I, Ben, am here to demystify the whole thing for you in no more or less than 10 easy-to-digest segments. Trust me, after watching this video, you'll be able to fool anyone into thinking you're some sort of Tiny Tina's mastermind. We've trawled through the internet for the better part of an afternoon and curated a whole bunch of information on the upcoming spin-off so that you can dive right in upon release, safe in the knowledge that you've got the 411 on everything that's going off. I'm Ben from TripleJump, and here are 10 things you need to know before playing Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. Number 10. Who is Tiny Tina? Those of you that have played Borderlands 2, Borderlands the pre-sequel, or Borderlands 3 will already be familiar with Tiny Tina, a slightly unstable NPC with a penchant for making things go boom. For anyone that's unfamiliar, Tiny Tina first shows up in the series' second outing when she's called upon to help the Vault Hunters, aka the story's good guys. Introduced as the world's most dangerous 13-year-old, she wastes no time in sending the Vault Hunters out to obtain a pair of rockets that she refers to as badonkadonks, so they can derail a train that's suspected to carry a precious vault key. The eccentric character proved so popular with fans that she was brought back for both of the franchise's follow-up games. She also starred as the Bunker Master in Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon Keep, which saw the eponymous heroine playing the tabletop role-playing game Bunkers and Badasses with her pals. The DLC ended up being so well received that in 2021 it was released as a standalone game so that anyone wanting to give it a go before Wonderland's release wouldn't be forced to play through all of Borderlands 2. Not that that's a bad thing, considering just how brilliant the game is, but it is somewhat time-consuming. Number 9. What is Bunkers and Badasses? If you've ever met a nerd in your life, you know, the sort you'd find down at TripleJump Towers, you've probably heard of role-playing game Dungeons & Dragons. In short, Bunkers and Badasses is a lot like Dungeons & Dragons, only without any of that nasty copyright infringement. Like the Assault on Dragon Keep DLC, Tiny Tina's Wonderlands focuses on Bunkers and Badasses as its core mechanic. Tiny Tina herself once again steps into the Bunker Master's role, meaning that she's in charge of world building and storytelling. The player joins Tina's table as the Fate Maker, and along with their companions, they must traverse the world that Tina has created, battling whatever enemies she sends their way. As in Dungeons & Dragons, each player character is unique and can do a whole manner of different things. Don't worry, we'll get to all of that in a moment. The world is epic and fantastical, and magic is very much the order of the day. Unlike Dungeons & Dragons, however, you won't have a complex character sheet to try and keep track of, and there's no risk of getting a D4 stuck in your foot. Our writer assures me that is incredibly painful. Number 8. Do I need to have played the other Borderlands games? In short, no. In long, no! According to the developers, there's absolutely no need for players to have picked up a single Borderlands title in order for them to have a great time with Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. Though the games share an art style, a handful of characters, and both sit firmly within the looter-shooter genre, it doesn't seem like they have much in common in terms of narrative. Where Borderlands is more sci-fi, focusing heavily on planet exploration and technologically advanced weaponry, Wonderlands sits firmly in the fantasy genre. Yes, there are still guns aplenty, but the traditional FPS combat is set to be supplemented with melee attacks and spell casting. With all of that said, however, we heartily recommend giving the Borderlands series a go, though if you're short on time, we suggest skipping straight to Borderlands 2. There's nothing wrong with the franchise's other games, but in both our writer's opinion and the opinion of most critics, 2 is by far the strongest of the 4 main titles, and I agree as well, the person doing the voiceover, hello. The sequel currently sits at a hugely impressive 91 out of 100 on Metacritic, which is undoubtedly thanks to its witty writing, engaging story, hilarious voice performances, and fun combat mechanics. As we've said though, it is 100% unnecessary to play it before you crack on with Wonderlands. Number 7. Should I play Assault on Dragon Keep? You're asking a video game channel if you should play a critically acclaimed video game. Naturally, our opinion on the matter is yes. Yes, you should definitely play this very good game. You're not here for opinions though, you're here for cold hard facts, so strap in because I'm about to lay them on you. Again, based on the information we have about Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, we can't see any reason why you would need to play Assault on Dragon Keep in order to get the most out of the experience. If you are interested in giving the Wonderlands one shot a go, however, then you're going to be in for a great time. With Tiny Tina as the bunker master, players are plonked into a world spawned entirely from the teenager's mind. There are goofy jokes, ridiculous enemies, and luck-based chests emblazoned with 20-sided dice. But behind all of the lightheartedness and wacky humor, there's a very poignant story that's sure to hit players right in the feels, even if they haven't played Borderlands 2. We won't spoil what it's actually all about, but we will just say make sure to keep those tissues on hand. You're going to need them. Number 6. What is the overworld? Every game needs an impressive map, and that's exactly what the overworld is to Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. Being a tabletop role-playing game, the actual physical overworld is a large map that represents the Wonderlands and has been painstakingly crafted by Tina to feature rolling hills, hand-painted trees, and the odd cheese puff or two. When players aren't engaged in combat or exploring an area looking for that sweet, sweet loot, then they'll jump into a third-person perspective and be able to navigate the overworld using adorable little miniature versions of themselves. Within the fantasy realm of the Wonderlands, there are a ton of locations to explore, and developer Gearbox has been kind enough to reveal a few ahead of time. From Queen Butt Stallion's home of Castle Sparkle Withers to the snowy, goblin-infested caves of Mount Craw, there's plenty of ground for players to cover. Off the beaten path, players are sure to find plenty of hidden treasures, but they best keep their wits about them because there's bound to be some scumbag hiding in the shadows that's just itching to roll for initiative. Number 5. Who is the bad guy? If you've ever played a TTRPG, then you'll know that a campaign is nothing without its BBEG, or Big Bad Evil Guy if you want to get less abbreviated about this. And the Dragon Lord is one of the biggest, baddest, and evilest guys we have ever seen. A powerful necromancer, the Dragon Lord has been trying to eradicate heroism from the Wonderlands for years, but on every occasion, his dastardly plans have been thwarted by Queen Butt Stallion and the Party of Heroes. Not one to give up easily, this nasty lad has reared his ugly head once again in an attempt to destroy those who oppose him once and for all, and it looks like the only thing standing in his way is the player and their ragtag troupe of misfit adventurers. One villain does not an epic fantasy game make, however, and players will need to have their wits about them at all times in order to overcome the smorgasbord of wrong'uns and monsties. From the Dragon Lord's reanimated skeleton army to giant carnivorous mushrooms and angry trolls, there's so much arse to kick that you'll probably need a few extra legs just to roundhouse your way through it all. Number 4. Can I create my own character? Indeed you can! Unlike previous Borderlands titles where players select from a handful of pre-made Vault Hunters, Wonderlands is set to have fully customizable player characters. Gearbox have been a little vague so far about the details of Wonderland's character creation suite, but they have revealed that players will be able to choose their character's physical appearance and voice, their race, and their personality. Based on the footage we've seen in trailers for the game, players will get to choose from a number of humanoid races, which seem to include orcs, goblin-like creatures, and human beings. The developer hasn't revealed much about personality customization, other than it isn't going to impact the character's skills and abilities to any great degree. All of that is in the skill trees. Players will also get to select a class that best reflects their playstyle. At the time of writing, 4 classes have been announced by the developer, with more promised in the final product. So far, we've seen the Berserker, who is your resident tanky lad or lass, the Clawbringer, who is a faithful warrior, the Spellshot, who does exactly what it says on the tin, and the Stabomancer for the more roguish among you. Regardless of how you like to play, it really does seem like Wonderlands has something for everyone. Number 3. Can I hoard loot like a mysterious loot dragon? If you haven't played a Borderlands game before, then you might be unaware that each one is a loot lover's paradise, and Tiny Tina's Wonderlands is set to be no different. The series' procedurally generated loot system is back with a vengeance, meaning that there are literally millions of different weapons that can drop from a variety of places. Gun-toting heroes will have a whole load of firearms to keep them happy, including pistols, shotguns, and sniper rifles, and thanks to how they're randomized, no two will have the same stats. Shields are back, only in Wonderlands they're referred to as wards, but their basic function is the same, i.e. they protect the player character to a certain extent from the nearest goblin onslaught. Players will also be able to get their hands on rings and amulets, which aside from looking rather snazzy, will also empower their characters with buffs, stat increases, and other cool effects. We've also heard that for the first time in a Borderlands game, players will be able to collect armor for their character, which adds a whole extra dimension to the game's loot mechanics. We hope you've got a big backpack for all that stuff you're going to find. Number 2. When and how can I play? I'm so glad you asked. At the time of writing, Tiny Tina's Wonderlands is set to be released on March the 25th, 2022, with the date being splashed across trailers as recently as December 2021. Though there have been a number of video game delays over the past couple of years due to the global situation, trademark, 2K and Gearbox seem to have no qualms about shouting Wonderland's release date from the rooftops, so fingers crossed that we won't see any postponements. In terms of how you can play Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, it's more or less good news across the board. The game will be coming to PC, Xbox and PlayStation on both the current generation and the previous one. Not the previous generation of PC, obviously, you know what I mean. Naturally, there are several different versions of the game available, including Next Level and Chaotic Great Editions, which each come with their own perks. As if all that weren't enough, players can also pick up Tiny Tina's treasure trove for the low price of just $100, which admittedly doesn't include a copy of the game, but it does come with a Butt Stallion plush, a Cloth Wonderlands map, and a Bunkers and Badasses module that allows players to run their own tabletop one-shot in real life. Who needs the game when you can live the adventure? But you will want the game, obviously. Number 1. Oh, and one last thing. Is there anyone famous in Tiny Tina's Wonderlands? You bet your sweet badonkadonk there is! Reprising her role as the game's leading lady is none other than Golden Joystick winner and TGA nominee Ashley Birch. Even if you don't recognize her face, you will have surely played at least one of the dozens of video games that she's lent her voice to. She was Cassie Cage in Mortal Kombat X, Chloe Price in Life is Strange, and perhaps most notably, she stars as Aloy in both Horizon Zero Dawn and Horizon Forbidden West. Eagle-eared fans of The Lonely Island will also pick up on the dulcet tones of Andy Samberg, who will be appearing as the dashing rogue Captain Valentine. Or Valentine, I don't know. According to Samberg's IMDb page, Wonderlands will be the first time the Brooklyn Nine-Nine star has ventured into the world of video game voice acting, but based on what we've heard in the trailer, we've no doubt he'll do a great job. Valentine's robot sidekick Fret will be voiced by none other than Emmy Award winner Wanda Sykes, who folks will recognize from shows such as Curb Your Enthusiasm and Blackish, and the game's baddie, the Dragon Lord, will be brought to life by Arrested Development's hapless magician, Job, aka Will Arnett. Good golly, with all this talent, there's barely going to be space for anything else.